You know the statues, moss-eaten armies staring out from the covers of forbidden books, the heralds, 7 beings who, according to every holy text, arrived at the dawn of language to deliver truth. They came with scrolls that did not burn, with voices that spoke every dialect simultaneously, with eyes that saw the future but wept for each. For 3,000 years, we believed they were messengers, angels without thrones, servants of a silent God. That is a lie. What if I told you the heralds were never sent to us, they were running from something? What if the truths they delivered were actually fragments of a single, catastrophic secret they were forced to bury? What if the last living herald Jai? What if each was imprisoned inside the one place no believer would ever think to look? For centuries, scholars argued over the heraldic silence. The moment, exactly 1,472 years ago, when all 7 stopped speaking at the same second, across 3 continents, in 17 different languages. The church called each the Ascension, the heretics called each the Hallowing, but neither knew about the 8th scroll, the one that was not delivered, the one that says, in a scripture that predates Sumerian, they are not gone, they are listening, and they are not pleased. Before we open that scroll together, I need you to do something. Keep your breath shallow. Ask yourself honestly, have you ever felt a moment of perfect, unexplained dread? A second where the air changed and you knew something ancient was watching? That feeling, that is not paranoia, that is a frequency. We hear about your tuning into it. Invisible engagement prompt, comment with I felt it if you've ever had that moment of unexplainable cold. Part 1. The arrival that was not an arrival. Let us begin 5 years ago. Not a city, not a temple. A cave in what is now the Zagros Mountains, on a wall that has never been photographed by any expedition you've read about. The paint is not ochre, it is not charcoal. Spectral analysis done in 1987, classified immediately showed the pigment is composed of crystalline structures that do not occur naturally on this planet. But that is not the disturbing part. The disturbing part is what the painting depicts. 7 figures, tall, thin, heads crowned not with halos but with what looks like exposed circuitry if circuitry could be grown from bone. They are not descending foam clouds. They are emerging from a vertical crack in the earth, like something pushed them up from a pressurized wound. The humans painted around them are until worshipping. They are fleeing. One figure is drawn on its side, legs is still inside the crack, as if it didn't make it out cleanly. The official translation of the first cuneiform tablets mentioning the heralds calls them the ones who opened the gate from above. But that is a mistranslation. The original Sumerian ideogram for above also means before time. In the word opened is actually a passive construction. Were opened. The heralds didn't open anything. Something opened them. Now it is where the story gets deliberately confused by centuries of redaction. You see, the earliest cult of the heralds, the so-called Kainiches, didn't worship them as divine. They treated them as refugees. There are the fragments of a text called the Book of Groans, which the Vatican has a lead-lined box that describes the heralds bleeding a substance that was not blood. Each was clear. Each moved upward when spilled, and when each touched a human tongue, the human could suddenly speak a language that described colors I had seen. One Kainichi priest wrote, "They do not know why they are yeti. They repeat the same question in 400 voices. Is that they are mended? We do not understand the question. But when we say no, they weep the upward liquid. When we say yes, they smile, and their smiles are the most terrifying thing we have witnessed, because their teeth are arranged in a pattern that spells a word in our alphabet, K-L-E-T, Kelech. It appears nowhere else in ancient language. But in modern Hungarian, it means east. In Hebrew, Kala means bride or completion. Coincidence? Or are we seeing a word that means the direction of the origin wound? Invisible engagement prompt. If you've ever tried to look up Kelech and found nothing, type void in the comments. You're not alone. Part 2. The first lie. The gift of writing. Every schoolchild knows this story. The herald named Sadiel gave humanity cuneiform. Hemiel gave the hieroglyphs. Baradiel gave the first alphabet to our shepherd in Canaan. The gift was language structured, written, permanent, and with it came law, poetry, contract, case. But the Caracoto Codex, discovered in 1908, but never fully translated, tells a different story. According to the text, written on human skin stretched over idol, the heralds didn't give writing, they imprisoned something inside writing. The Codex says, before the marks, the voice of the deep could speak through any throat. The deep had no shape, so it borrowed the shape of breath. But when the heralds drew the first wedge in clay, they trapped the deep S syllables into fixed forms. Each letter is a cage. Each sentence is a row of cells. The deep screams inside the ink, but no one hears because no one remembers listening to the silence before letters. Think about it. What if writing wasn't a gift? What if it was a quiet apocalypse, a way to silence a mode of communication that was old or mighty honest? And what if the heralds were not the inventors of this prison, but its guards, tasked with ensuring that no human ever again heard the voice of the deep? This explains something that has mystified linguists for decades: the Phantom Vowel. In almost every ancient language, there is a sound that was written but never spoken aloud. A glottal stop with no name, a breath mark that appears only in sacred texts, always in the same position relative to the name of a herald. Pronouncing it, according to the Mishneh Torah glosses, caused bleeding from the nose and a sudden understanding of the position of every star in the sky. The rabbis eventually ruled that the mark was to be seen but not voiced. In other words, keep the cage door closed. What happens if you voice it? We know of exactly 3 documented cases. 2 ended in suicide within a week. The third was a monk in 1348 who, after whispering the vowel during a fever dream, transcribed 12 pages of a language no one has ever decoded. The pages were buried within, but his confessor left a note. He said the heralds are not 7. They are 7 fingers on one hand, and the hand belongs to something that has not yet turned over. Invisible engagement prompt. Would you dar teu whisper a sound no human has made in 3 years? Comment I would or I would not be honest. Part 3. The betrayal of the 5th herald. We know their names in order: Sariel, Remiel, Baradiel, Tizaquiel, Zadikiel, Haniel, and Cassiel. But the 5th one, Zadikiel, is almost never depicted. In the rare icons that survive, Zadikiel is shown with its face partially dissolved, as if something ate away the left side of its skull. Its hands are not raised in blessing, they are clamped over its own mouth. Why? The Mandaean scrolls of Joe, not the Christian Joe, an older one, describe a council of the 7, held in a place called the Court of the Unspoken Syllable. In this court, Zadikiel Rosin said something that the scrolls immediately refused to record. Instead, they described the reaction. The remaining 6 ceased their vibration. Their eyes, which had been mirrors, became voids. And they turned as one body, not 7 beings but a single machine of bone. Elighting, they did not strike Zadikiel. They did not banish him. They did something worse. They made him forget why he spoke. Forgetting, in heraldic terms, is not a loss of memory. It is a loss of motive. Zadikiel continued to exist, continued to deliver truths, but it no longer knew why it was doing so. It became an automaton, speaking words that felt true but had no origin. And it is the human tragedy. For 300 years, humans listened to Zadikiel more than any other herald, because its voice had acquired a strange, hollow beauty. Without purpose, it sought to borrow purpose from every human who heard it. It became a mirror. It told each listener exactly what they most wanted to hear, disguised as cosmic truth. This is where the first great schism happened. The true heroes, a tiny sect based in what is now Yemen, realized that Zadikiel had been corrupted. They wrote, when a herald forgets its origin, it does not fall silent. It becomes an amplifier of human desire. In human desire, reflected back as divine command, is the most destructive force in creation. The true heroes attempted to unvoice Zadikiel. They developed a ritual involving 7 mirrors, a pool of mercury, and a chant that was the reverse of the herald's true name. The ritual failed. But something happened that the Vatican Index Secretum describes as the first breach. A crack appeared in the air above the Mercury pool, through which witnesses saw a landscape that was not a landscape. It was a conversation. Mountains that spoke to each other in bass rumbles. Rivers that asked questions. In arte de sentir, a figure the size of a city, lying on its side, with its chest open. Inside the chest, 7 smaller figures, each one chained to a rib. The witnesses understood, without being told, that they were looking at the real heralds. The ones that walked the earth were not the originals. They were projections, puppets, and someone or something had caught the strings. The crack closed after 9 seconds, but the scream that came through lasted for 3 days, heard by every pregnant woman within 100 miles. Every child born in that region that year was born with an extra tooth in the shape of a key. Invisible engagement prompt. Have you ever had a dream about a giant figure with its chest open? Comment with ribs if yes. You he not the first. Part 4. The 8th scroll, the one they burned. Let us talk about the 8th scroll, because you've heard claims. The Dead Sea Scrolls had hidden texts. The Nag Hammadi library had secret gospels. But the 8th scroll is different. It was never hidden. It was hunted. Em 1945, a Bedouin shepherd Neil Heyman El-Nakib discovered a clay jar that did not contain papyrus. It contained a single sheet of what looked like gold foil, but which analysis later showed to be an alloy of iridium, an unknown element that decays at a rate inconsistent with any known isotope. On this foil, in Aramaic but with a grammar that does not match any known dialect, was a text of 1,2 words. The shepherd sold it to a antiquities dealer in Bethlehem, who sold it to a Syrian Orthodox priest, who delivered it to the monastery of St. Catherine in Sinai. It arrived on a Tuesday. By Thursday, a Vatican delegation had arrived by military aircraft. The monastery's abbot, a man named Gregorius, managed to copy 3 lines before the scroll was seized. His copy survived, hidden in the spine of a missal. Ele added those lines. Translated, we added not the first 7. There were 7 before us, and 7 before them, and the original 7 added not heralds but a single voice broken into 14 lungs. The void that sent us is not a god, it is a consequence. And the question we are ordered to never answer is this: what happened till the first voice? The answer is carved into the stone that does not reflect light. Find it, read it, but do not speak it aloud, because speaking is how you invite it back. Gregorius added his own notch in the margin. The Vatican men were not afraid of the scroll's content. They were afraid of something else. One of them, a Monsignor with no shadow, kept repeating, "It es tolat. It already knows we found it." Then they left. 3 days later, the shepherd who found the jar was found dead. His eyes had been replaced with 2 small, perfectly smooth stones. The dealer vanished. The priest suffered a stroke while looking at a blank wall. I am the last who has seen the 8th scroll. I am writing this by candlelight. I have just noticed that my shadow is moving slightly to the left of my body. No further records of Gregorius exist after that night, but his copy of the 3 lines, it is a private collection in Switzerland. The owner allows no photographs, but I have seen a tracing. The letters are the ordinary. What is not ordinary is that when you hold the tracing up to a mirror, the negative space between the words forms a face with 7 eyes, and the mouth is open. Invisible engagement prompt. If you've ever felt like your written text was looking back at you, comment reading is the way. Part 5. The Hollowing. What happened a single second 1,472 years ago. Every record, from Chinese court chronicles till Mayan glyphs till Irish monastic annals, notches the same anomaly. At the 9th of the 3rd day of the month of Tebet, adjusting for calendar differences, all 7 heralds stopped speaking, not gradually, not one after another, simultaneously, across the entire inhabited world. In a single second, the voices that had guided, deceived, and haunted humanity fell silent. The initial reaction was panic. temples were stormed, oracles burned. But then nothing, no punishment, no plague, no divine retribution, just silence. And within a generation, the heralds became myth, then legend, then forgotten. But the Yanlu Codex found in a sealed chamber beneath a Daoishi temple in Sichuan in 1998 tells a different story. According to this text, dictated by a spirit medium who spoke in the voice of a dead herald or what remained of one, the silence was not an event. Ichu is a door. We stopped speaking because we were no longer allowed to lie. We were no longer allowed to lie because the one who commanded us to lie had finally turned its attention elsewhere. For 10,000 years, we had been broadcasting a frequency that kept humans asleep, sleeping till the real, awake till the false. But when the frequency stopped, a few humans heard the silence properly. They heard the beneath the silence, they of the deep. In the deep, sensing that its cage had a crack, began to whisper back. The Codex lists the names of 15 humans who, in the generation after the hollowing, went mad not with gibberish but with too much meaning. They could see the mathematical structure of coincidence. They could hear the conversations of trees, and they all drew the same symbol, a spiral with 7 breaks. One of them, a woman in Gaul named Elshide, wrote a single sentence before dying of what the Romans called light poisoning. Her skin glowed faintly for 3 days. She wrote, "The heralds did not leave. They were recalled. The recall signal came from inside the earth. They are below us now, standing in a circle, facing outward, waiting for us to forget to be afraid." Elshide S. Grave was excavated in 2004. Her skeleton was found in a fetal position, but her teeth were arranged in her jaw upside down, crowns in the bone, roots exposed. In her right hand, clutched against her chest, was a stone carved with a spiral of 7 breaks. The stone's composition matched nothing else at the site. Neutron activation analysis showed it came from a source that does not exist on any geological map. Invisible engagement prompt: do you believe silence can be a sound? Comment if you've ever heard the quiet speak. Part 6. The imprisoned herald, a location that will shock you. It is the question no one asked. If the heralds were recalled, where were they recalled? To heaven, hell, another dimension? The answer is both mighty mundane and infinitely mighty disturbing. In 1957, a Soviet drilling project in the Kola Peninsula, the famous Well to Hell hoax, has a kernel of truth hit a depth of 12,262 meters. The drills slowed. The temperature rose. And then, according to the diary of the lead geologist, Dr. Azat Bajirov, a diary that was confiscated by the KGB and only leaked in 2012, the sound changed. The drill produced a noise that was not mechanical. It was rhythmic. It was vocal. Bajirov wrote, "It is singing, not a human song, not a machine song. It sounds like a mountain trying to remember being a cloud." I ordered the team to lower a microphone. What we recorded lasted 6 seconds before the top melted. But in those 6 seconds, we heard a voice saying the same word a loop. The word is not Russian, not English, not any language I know, but I understood it. The word means forgive. It was not asking us for forgiveness. It was offering it to us for something we have not yet done. The Kola Borehole was sealed in 1962. Officially due to unexpected geological conditions. But Bajirov's assistant, who spoke to a Finnish journalist in 1989 before dying of a sudden brain aneurysm, said, "We didn't seal it because of heat, we sealed it because something was coming up, not a gas, not a liquid, a presence. We felt it as a drop in ambient temperature, a smell like old books burning." The microphones recorded footsteps climbing the shaft, footsteps that did not belong to any creature with legs. It is the connection. The Kola Borehole is located at approximately 69º, 31º e. In the Book of Groans, the heralds are described as emerging from a vertical crack in the earth at the place where the cold burns, and the night lasts 7 months. An exact description of the Kola region. The scroll says, "One remained below, not banished, not punished, left as a sentinel, its duty, till listen for the knock. When the knock comes from above, it will open the seal from below. The knock is 3 taps, a pause, in 4 taps. The rhythm of the word awake the language of the deep. Think about it. For 1,472 years, a living herald has been imprisoned 12 kilometers beneath the surface of the earth. Not dead, not dormant, listening, waiting for a specific knock. And it is the truly terrifying part. No one has ever drilled the deep again. But every chimia subway is built, every chimia mine is extended, every chimia tunnel is bored for a particle accelerator. Are we getting closer to accidentally knocking? Em 2016, a seismic array in Finland detected a rhythmic pattern of microquakes at 119 kilometers depth. The pattern was 3 small tremors, a pause, in 4 small tremors. The official explanation is 3 release along a previously unknown fault line. The unofficial explanation, from a seismologist who resigned immediately after, something though there is moving, each is moving with intention. Invisible engagement prompt. Would you want to know if a herald lived beneath your city? Comment below or above and tell us why. Part 7, the 5th truth, the one that changes everything we have hidden each until now. The ultimate secret. The truth that the heralds were willing to lie for 10,000 years to protect. The truth that the 8th scroll only hints at. The truth that, if spoken aloud in the presence of a mirror, will cause the reflection to speak back a voice that is not your own. It is, the heralds were never separate from humanity. They are not angels. They are not aliens. They are us but from a timeline that no longer exists. The Codex of the Broken Wheel, a text so suppressed that only 3 fragments survive, one in a Jesuit archive in Rome, one in a private library in Istanbul, and one most disturbingly in the glove compartment of a crash car in Nevada that was never claimed, states it plainly. In the age before the age, humanity reached a peak not of technology but of awareness. We learned to see the 4th dimension as easily as we see depth. We learned to speak to the dead because the dead were not gone. They were simply around the corner of Chimie. And then we made a mistake. We tried to make a choice that had already happened. We tried to save someone who had chosen to die. In doing so, we split the timeline into 7 strands. The heralds added the echoes of our future selves, sent back to warn us not to attempt the same repair. But the journey back collapsed their awareness into fixed forms. They forgot they were us. They thought they were messengers, but they were only memories. Memories that had been given teeth and told to stand guard. This explains everything. Why the heralds could never answer the question, where do you come from? Because their origin no longer existed. Why they wept the upward liquid? Because they were mourning their own non-existence. Why Zadkiel is hollowing made each a mirror of human desire? Because each was the first herald to dimly remember that each was human. Why the silence of the hollowing was not a punishment but a mercy. They finally remembered, and the remembering broke them. But it is the final twist, the one that has kept scholars awake for decades. If the heralds are the future humans, then the deep, the thing they were imprisoning with writing, must also be human. The deep is not a demon. Each is not a god. Each is the original timeline. The one we split away from. The one that is to exists, parallel to ours, where the mistake was never made. In the timeline, humans never forgot how to see the 4th dimension. They never lost the voice of the deep. They are still there, and they have been watching us fumble with our alphabets, our wars, our lonely silences. Watching us with 7 eyes, because in the timeline, humans evolved a different face. A face with a cluster of photoreceptors on the forehead, what we would call a 7th eye. And they have been waiting for us to finish our experiment. Waiting for us to realize that we are the broken version of them. And when we finally figure it out, they will reach across the split. Not to help, not to harm, to integrate, to pull our timeline back into theirs. Which sounds beautiful, until you realize that integration means the end of everything we call self. Numore individuation, numore frio, numore linear time, just an eternal, silent perfect awareness. That is what the heralds were trying to prevent, not by lying but by keeping us distracted, with religion, with war, with love, with artigo. All of which was a hoji action, designed to keep us from looking too closely at the shape of Chimmy. Because the moment we see the crack in the wheel, the other timeline will see us seeing it. And then the integration begins. Invisible engagement prompt, if you had to choose, individual flawed self or perfect collective awareness, comment self or collective no right answer. Conclusion, the knock is coming, the heralds are silent, the 8th scroll is hidden. The imprisoned one is 2 lessons, 12 kilometers below the Kola Peninsula, in the deep waits in the timeline beside ours, patient as gravity, but something has changed. In the last 20 years, reports of the Phantom Vowel have increased exponentially, not from scholars, from children. All over the world, children are being born with the ability to make a sound that their parents cannot hear, but that causes mirrors still foggy. Linguists at a half-dozen universities have documented the phenomenon, but none have published. The word is suited in each means either I remember or the wound is closing, depending on the dialect. And then there are the tremors, 3 taps, a pause, 4 taps. Recorded not just in Finland, but now in South Africa, in Chile, a dormant volcano in Japan. The knock is spreading. The imprisoned herald is not waiting anymore. Each is moving. If the codex of the broken wheel is correct, each move is not through hockey but through the same hidden dimension that the deep inhabits. Each is climbing, not up a shaft of hockey but up the shaft of Chimmy. The question is not whether the knock will come. The question is, when each does, will we answer, or will we finally learn to make the sound that silences the deep forever? The heralds knew that sound. Each is the sound of a human voice speaking its own true name, not the name given at birth. The name that existed before the timeline is split. The name that, when spoken, collapses the distance between now and then. No one knows their true name, but the heralds left clues. Every sacred text, every unsolved cipher. The silence between heartbeats. They did not come to save us. They came to remind us of what we forgot, that we are the ones who broke Chimmy, and we are the only ones who can mend it. But mending comes at a cost. The cost is everything you think you know. Are you ready to pay? If you read this far, you are already part of the story. Comment I remember to seal your connection till the deep, and then for the first Chimmy 1,472 years listen till the silence. Each is not empty. Each is speaking. Each always has been.